Chapter 2, The Great Spirit. My brothers and my sisters, in the name of the Great Spirit, God, within thine own soul hear me. Be ye attentive, that ye may remember my instructions as set down herein. Be also considerate, for I am no more nor less than one of you. I was sent into the world to wall the true disciple around with wisdom's hand. I have given you an exclusive teaching. I have given to you peace and truth. I have drawn a veil over the dark past of evil and ignorance, and taught you to love and respect one another, and to embrace knowledge. In time, my disciples shall become the most numerous in all the world. This is the miracle of the truth unto you. On the foundation I have given you shall my doctrines be henceforth forever. Be ye watchful against gods, josses, and man-made saviors, and especially wary of spirits of the dead who profess not the great all-person. Well, is it Jesus, man-made character? Historically, it's at least 4 people. And like a lot of the divinized heroes, obviously started off being thought of as a person. As a human person. All such are instigators of war and lust after earthly things. Be ye exclusive unto one another, suffering not outside barbarians, materialists, to come amongst you, especially to marry with none unless they believe as you believe. Well, to what extent do we take that? Because people don't believe exactly the same, even in the same group. Yet, ye shall not war against them. But it is lawful for you to keep them away. And these teachings, if followed, shall stand as a sign against all people who molest or injure you. And every change of moon, ye shall renew your covenant, which is my covenant with wisdom, God, teaching it to your children and commanding them to teach to theirs after them, and so on forever, swearing ye unto the Great Spirit to ignore all so-called heavenly rulers, but the Creator, the I Am, who is everywhere, even within the soul of man. And though idolaters come amongst you, proclaiming their God, are their Lord, are their Savior, hearken not unto them, but nevertheless persecute them not, nor injure them, for they are in darkness. Neither be ye conceited over them, for your forefathers were like unto them. The Creator hath made a wide world, and fruitful, and joyous, and giveth it unto man's keeping. Unto one people one country, unto another people another country, and so on, all the world over. This land the Creator giveth you. Be ye as brothers and sisters in this, your holy land. In the ancient day, the land was made to bloom as a flowery kingdom by the faithists of old. But they were neglectful of learning wisdom. Idolaters came upon them and destroyed them, and laid waste their rich fields. Yea, the bones of many people were strewn over all the land. But by these teachings ye are delivered, and ye shall make wisdom bloom in thy soul. And ye shall multiply my teachings, and build temples, and plant these truths, and make this heritage, which I give unto you, as an example unto all true disciples of divine wisdom and faith and truth. And by your neglect of war and war inventions, ye shall be a testimony of my teachings in this day. For the time shall surely come when these teachings will put down all unrighteousness and war and idolatry, and they will be truth and wisdom unto the whole world. Now, the thing that's outstripped everything else combined, it's the secularism thing. But when you compare the most violent and persecutive of the monotheisms, Judaism, and by Judaism I don't mean so-called Jewish culture that's not even religion, but I mean, like the various forms of Judaism, there's been more killing than any other monotheist group combined as far as faith-based killings. Um, and I don't count like executing murderers or something. Everybody did that, but you find that clearly faiths like Christianity, the polytheisms of even Rome and stuff, were more violent people, violent movements. I mean, it wasn't necessary. Oh, they're a polytheist; they're going to support an unjust war. Not necessarily. It's just there was a lot of this fighting for their so-called entities, and well, I just finished Plutarch's Lives, so I don't have to go too much into it. The Fountain of Wisdom. One man saith, I am normal. Neither spirits nor mortals rule over me. Yet he hath only boasted as a foolish man, who would say the same thing. Another said, Behold my wisdom. The highest spirits discourse through me. Yet he knoweth not whether it be true or not. Neither does any of them know the fountain of wisdom. For if an evil spirit saith it through them, the spirit himself is made up of borrowed knowledge and falsehood. I talked to a great philosopher one day, and he said, There are no gods, nor lords, nor angels, nor any great person like Jehovah. Well, they're pronouncing it wrong with the J's and the V's, but how can you say there's no God as a noun or verb? Everything is spirit. He showed me a book he had. I asked, Who made the book? I said, I made it. Nay, I made not the cloth, nor the binding. I made the philosophy that is in the book. Nay, I made not the philosophy, but found it. Nay, it was not lost. I led myself to find the philosophy. Nay, a man cannot lead himself. That I searched and found what was new to me. So that but little of that book was his after all. I saw 3 spirits standing beside this man, and they were laughing at him. If I had asked the spirits, they might have said, Nay, the thoughts are ours. And had I looked further, I might have seen other spirits still back of them claiming the same things. Yet, even such spirits are not the highest. Wherefore I say unto you, all things that come from an all highest fountain of knowledge, name ye it what ye will. He who saith, Wisdom spoke through me, he is the nearest, the truth of all. For all knowledge that comes to man is wisdom's word to that man, whether it come by a spirit or another man, or by the commonest corporeal thing, it is nevertheless from the all highest, which is wisdom. God. Well, just because God's omnipresent and has the final say doesn't mean that God sanctions everything that we've been provoked to dream by ourselves and the various, what we call fallen angels. And of course we need to show some discrimination between different sources. Not everybody who says, I have composed a philosophy and I have wrote down my spiritual experiences, maybe that's their experience, but different truths and different levels of truth and good, and different interpretations for different folks of some of that material. So, for what reason bow ye not down and worship to any man, nor to any spirit, but only to the highest, wisdom, for it is the figurehead and pinnacle of all the highest conceived of, and in contradistinction all the lowest. The foot of the ladder call ye darkness and evil and wickedness, and in sin and death. Some people prefer to call God by one quality or another. So let's not just criticize people because one person picks loving, one person picks the most wise, another person picks the vengeful, or, all lowest, the foot to the ladder, call ye darkness and evil, and wickedness and sin. And it's in death. Attribute not to men, nor angels, nor spirits, this or that, for they themselves are not first causes, nor responsible, but in part, but attribute all good, high, best, and wise things unto the essence of the divine wisdom within yourself, and all evil, dark, low things to an evil person are spirits who have opened their own soul to that which is lowest, evil and dark. But these I should make plain unto you what I mean. And it is an easy matter for ye to look into your souls and comprehend as to which of these two ye most incline. The soul of man may be likened unto a vine, which can be trained either upward to divine wisdom or downward to evil and darkness. And if ye desire to know if a vine be trained upward or downward, look ye for the truth, and not to the fragrance. Some men pray much, but as to good works, they are like a vine without fruit, but with plenty of fragrance. One man waiteth till he is rich, for he seeks the divine within himself. Another man waiteth for the spirits to inspire him, and give wonders before he teacheth the unlearned, or help the poor. Another waiteth for the multitude to join in first, and yet another waiteth for something else. Beware of such men, or put them in scales, where nothing is weighed. In all things give ye precedence to the spirit of wisdom within thyself, as the Creator is over all his works. So should the spirit of divine wisdom be over man's works, and over his corporeal body also. Herein lies the foundation of the knowledge of all wise men. For the materialist, the heathen, and the idolater, who labor for self, what are they but servants unto the flesh? Some labor for the development and understanding of true spiritual power, which is purity and love and goodness and justice. Such are on the right road to become a great soul. Remember the heathens. They say, first provide the physical body, then the spiritual. But I say unto you, the Creator of all things created them both. And he who saith, first provide for the material or physical body, never looketh to his spirit or soul afterward. Beware, for two extremes meeting are always dangerous, great wealth and extensive poverty. It not only devolveth on the rich to share their substance with the poor, but they shall go amongst them, teaching them and uplifting the poor, sick, and needy. Because obviously, whatever one's means are, one's have to, there's stuff that you got to do with what one's means are. The hand, hard with toil, will ensure a better heir than the dimpled hand of a proud rich woman. For she hath a soul of passion, and her offspring will have souls like a mixture of gall and sugar. Though they be sweet, they will prove to be bitter in time to come. Consider, my child, show him a house with a head orderly, that he may grow up understanding the discipline of the wisdom within his father's own soul. The father should lead in all things, and the mother should be vice leader in all things, to rule in his absence. For each family shall be a kingdom of itself, but no man shall be a tyrant, though he have precedence in all things. For the chief virtue of the parent lieth in its teaching, self-control, and discipline to the young mind, holding it steadfast after the orderly manner of truth. And because the child repeateth these things with thee, it learneth to honor thee with good rejoicing. And when thy sons and daughters are yet small, thou shalt teach them to work, inspire them above all things, not to falling and idleness, which lieth at the borders of evil, but overtax them not, nor give them pain, remembering they are to be thy glory, which thy Creator hath bestowed unto thee, to be in thy keeping, not for self-aggrandizement, but for their own delights and holy pleasure. Remember thou that labor shall be delight, and toil a great benefit. To have it otherwise to thy children and to thyself is to prostitute man, to be as a wild beast of the field. And even thy little ones shall learn that thou art but a brother, an elder brother, and the same Creator's children, teaching them that one who hoardeth and keepeth things in his own possessions is a cannibal, that eateth his kindred, flesh and blood. Above all things thou shalt teach them to keep holy and pure the body created withal, for herein lieth health and strength. Teach them self-control in all things. Teach them that by belief in themselves, God, they can become immune to disease and an early death. Teach them to be positive and to believe and have great faith and belief in the spiritual power of their own soul to overcome disease and failure, for according to their belief will it be unto them. Remember, there are those whom are disbelievers, and they say, I see no God. Soul, I know no all power. I deny the soul of all things. Where is the spirit? I cannot see it, or hear the sounds of its voice. And if there be a soul, let it come before me. I would see it. Yea, in their material teachings and belief, they say this, let them get understanding and wisdom, and they will then know the vanity of such words. The numbers of the judgment, hear the words of wisdom, O man. Wherefore declare I unto thee in this day, the same shall be testified by millions of spirits, of immortals ere one generation pass away, of Brahman spirits in the lowest zones, as wanderers in the earth. There are this day more than 4,000 million. Of Buddhist spirits in the lowest zones, as wanderers on the earth, there are this day more than 7,000 million. More Buddhists than Hindu. Okay, that's of Ka-yuan spirits in the lowest zones, as wanderers on the earth, there are of this day more than 3,000 million. Of Christian spirits in the lowest zones, as wanderers on the earth, there are this day more than 3,000 million. Of Mohammedan spirits in the lowest zones, as wanderers on the earth, there are this day more than 2,000 million. Well, now that would have made sense in terms, well, nowadays that makes sense. So they wander on the earth, but how is there 3 billion Christians? Okay, that makes sense, but 3 billion Chinese, 7 billion Buddhists, 4 billion Brahmins? Yeah, that doesn't make sense. Of Jewish spirits in the lowest zones, as wanderers on the earth, there are this day more than 30 million. And of other spirits, idolatrous and otherwise, even on the earth, more than 12,000 million. And of all these spirits, not one is above zone or grade 5 in the first resurrection. That's quite judging people, not knowing a lot of internal or external spiritual status, right? Well, signs for spiritual status, anyways. But of such as are below zone 1, there are more than 6,000 million, being mostly such spirits as know nothing more than babes, though, for the most part, they were full-grown adults as to earth life. Some are vessels, some engrafters, professional reincarnators, who dwell with one mortal during his lifetime, and then engraft themselves on another mortal during his lifetime, and so on, calling themselves reincarnated, and, in fact, knowing no other zones in spiritual life, being disbelievers in the all-person and in exalted wisdom. Now, grafting on attachment to others that you hear of and from before your lifetime and that sort of stuff is certainly one of the reasons why people have fallen into the whole reincarnation thing. Such are below grade 1 are classified as drujas, being spirits that are earthbound and are bound to mortals. They inhabit mostly the oldest cities and places of filth and indecency. Okay, I knew there was some sort of what you'd call Zoroastrian, Masti Yasna has Zarathustra influence in this. Bound to mortals. They inhabit mostly the oldest cities and places of filth and indecency. Nevertheless, they also inhabit the palaces of kings and queens, and emperors and popes, and priests and rich men. In the first zone, there are hundreds of millions of spirits strolling about that are earthbound, crying out, I want to go to Brahma. I want to go to Buddha. I want to go to Jesus. I want to go to Christ. And I send my host. Do they mean Krishna? And I send my host of high-raised spirits to them, saying, Come ye to the highest zones, and be clothed and fed, and learn to clothe and feed others, for this is the way of resurrection. But they will not believe, but turn away in stubbornness of heart, even as ye of the earth, saying, Nay, I will rise only by prayers and confessions. I want to be changed in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, and rise and sit on the right hand of God. And there are hundreds of millions who, being dead, know not anything, but through belief in a judgment day, went to sleep, and are waiting for the trumpet of Gabriel to call them forth. And I send my exalted ones to them to awaken them up and call them up, but they are hypnotized with their faith, and they relapse again and again for years and years, for hundreds of years, fulfilling wisdom's mandate, that whatsoever is bound on earth should be bound in spirit life. And even as one drunken man on earth enticeth another to drunkenness, so there are hundreds of millions of idolatrous spirits who return to mortals and persuade them to their same doctrines and of their same debaucheries. Hear the words of wisdom, O man, and be wise in thy judgment. Thy Creator created thee alive, gave to thee of his own being. Be thou steadfast unto him, and thou shalt not err, but eliminate thyself from the chance of error. Thy Creator alone is unmistakably thy sure foundation, in whom thou shalt not be tripped up. Sufficient unto thee and thy resurrection is thy Creator. Wherefore, in thy soul shalt thou find the universal Spirit God, and thou shalt abjure all other gods, lords, and saviors. Or, that you abjure, you give up the claim that there is such things, or that, such is an accurate description of them, right? Maybe there are beings, but they're not any of those. Neither shalt thou try to exalt the name of the Creator of all things by adding thereunto any name in the shape and figure of man, nor one of woman born. Seek thou to attain to the voice of wisdom in all things, and to obey truth for righteousness' sake. Be not stubborn in thy conceit. In thy singleness of purpose thou shalt be ministered unto by the spirits of the first resurrection. But as thou unitest thyself at a brotherhood on earth, in the name of wisdom, so shalt thou be ministered unto by the light of truth for thy second resurrection. But it hath been proved, and shall be proved again, that all brotherhoods on earth, founded on any of the idols in heaven, shall not stand, because there is no second resurrection to minister unto them. And all societies and constitutions, and bylaws founded by men not capable of the second resurrection shall fail. But whosoever establish in the second resurrection, which is the abnegation of self, to serve by true faith the God in their own soul, shall not fail. And, well, we're all capable of this spiritual status that will enable us towards whatever, but do we actually reach unto that, right? But we could say, are we capable of resurrecting ourselves? I don't know. I'd question that interpretation of resurrection in the words of wisdom. Whether on earth or in spirit life, the same rules apply unto both. He that serveth himself one half, and serveth others one half, shall stand. Grade 50. He that serveth himself 3/4, and others 1/4, shall stand. Grade 25. He that serveth himself 1/4, and others 3/4, shall stand. Grade 75. He that serveth himself only shall stand. Grade 1. He that serveth others wholly shall stand. Grade 99. And whoso serveth accordingly himself or others shall stand in grade even as his works manifest. And of course, there's other grades in terms of like suar. So suar is like a step in the structure. So 114 suar steps. Surah is the scene, not sod, but then there's that status of degree, right? Through deeds. If you're adamant about the practice or the reading of the chapters, you can be counted amongst those who have learned it. Whether you've learned it or not, certainly you're trying. To serve oneself is to work for oneself, to strive for oneself, to think of oneself, and to do what will profit oneself only. To serve others is to do good unto others, to help them and to teach them, to give them joy and comfort. This is the service of a true soul which has attained wisdom. But there are some who are below the grades, who seek to do evil, who seek to make others happy, who delight in crime and pollution. These, if mortal, should be called trucks, and its spirits shall be called trujas. After such manner, in general, are the grades of the earth, atmospheres. Grade 1 is on the earth. Grade 50 midway betwixt the earth and the emancipatable zones, etheria. Grade 25 is 1/4 up from earth towards etheria, but grade 75 is 3/4 way upward toward etheria, and so on, relatively grade and place of ascent intermediately, but grade 99 is the highest hemispherian grade, preparatory to entrance into the company of the All-Spirit. Remember those lists of 99 names. It doesn't say that God's only has 99 names or anything like that, but so 99 has long been an important mystical number. But good works alone are not sufficient to attain the highest grades, for they require knowledge and capacity to unfold others, to accomplish which those of the higher grades shall oft return to the lower, and learn to lift them up. For this is that which calleth the Ethereans in the times of resurrections, wherein the righteous, who were yet mortal, begin at once, lifting up their fellows, which labor is to the spirit as exercise is to the mortal body, that which giveth strength. Judge then thyself, O man of the earth, as to the place thy spirit shall rise in time of thy death. A man may be wise as to books and philosophy, and mathematics and poetry and great learning, and yet be low in grade as to spirit. A man may know little of all such knowledge, and may be poor withal, but by hardship and experience developed in sympathy and good works done unto others, and be high in grade as to spirit. A man may know little of all such knowledge, and may be poor withal, but by hardship and experience developed in sympathy and good works done unto others, and be high in grade as to spirit. So also may it be with spirits that manifest through you as great orators, who stand even in the lowest grade in spirit life. Let not thyself deceive thyself. O man, as to thy knowledge or thy speech are professions, thou hast the scales in thy own hands, and shall soon or late weigh thyself justly, and take thy place, even as thou hast prepared thyself, nor flatter thyself that thou canst cheat the life hereafter, or change the ways thereof, nor hide thyself behind doctrines or behind the promises of man-made gods and saviors. Old things are done away, and none of these things shall avail those on earth or in spirit life. Be thou king or queen or judge or servant, the same judgment shall stand upon all. When the garment is gone, and the diadem and riches and flesh withal, consider thou the grade of thy spirit and the bondage upon thee. Thou shalt take that for which thou hast fitted thyself, according to what thou hast done. Hear my words, O disciple. Hear my words, O my disciple, and be considerate of the justice of the Creator. These are my exhibits, which I place before thee, that thou shalt not err, and thou be a rich man, adorn a city, by donating unto it a park with statuary and pleasure walks. Well, art doesn't have to be graven images, but hoping to glorify thyself thereby, and be praised by men. Therein thyself buryeth thyself in the first resurrection, and the act lowereth thy grade instead of raising it. For in whatsoever thou givest, thou shalt consider first the lowest of the low, whether they have bread to eat, and a place to sleep, and sick, whether they have attendance and good provision. And thou be a rich man, and contribute a house for orphans, or for the helpless and aged, who cannot help themselves. It raiseth thee in grade. But so far as thou doest this for the applause of men, thou detracteth from the rate of thy beneficence. Neither doth such a good work help thee more than the poor man helpeth his own grade by assisting one poor orphan. For thy resurrection dependeth not on the quantity thou givest, but as to whether thou givest according to what thou hast, of which matter thou shalt judge thyself. For he who giveth a penny may be raised up more by so doing than he that giveth 10,000. A certain rich man, being converted from the desires of earth, went about casting his money freely in the streets, and in giving to those who asked him therefor. And some gathered it up, and fed and clothed themselves. Others took it, and went and got drunk, and became worse than before. The measure of righteousness of that man's behavior was not in giving what he had to the poor, but in the good and evil that came of it, being weighed as to which outbalanced the other, and where he lowered the grade of them that received this money, or where he lowered a greater number than he raised, there his act of casting the money away was a judgment against him. He who giveth, saying, Here thou beggar, doeth a good corporeal act, but an evil spiritual act. He lifteth up with one hand, but injureth with his tongue. Such an act detracteth from the grade of that man. A certain rich man, being converted to do good works, went and built a score of soup houses to feed the poor, gratuitously. Yeah. And all the poor people of that town went therein, and were fed. But the next year, behold, there were twice as many poor. And the rich man built another score of soup houses, and they were all fed. But the next year, there were still twice as many poor people to feed. But the rich man had exhausted his means, and could feed none at all. Judgment is therefore rendered against that man for his supposed benevolence. Oh, that's overshooting it, because he helped the people that he could forever. He didn't have resources to feed people forever, and he still did the same level of good, regardless of how quickly he got ran out. But somebody judgment against a guy for using up his spare money feeding the poor. Come on. For whilst he did a little corporeal good, he did a great spiritual wrong, because he lowered the grade of manhood and womanhood in those that he fed. His benevolence promised dependence. That isn't necessarily why such things happen. A rich man founded a place of labor for the poor, who had nothing to eat and nowhere to sleep. And they said unto them, The Creator hath given you hands to work with, come ye, be men and women. And they went and worked and earned their living. Judgment is rendered in favor of that man, for he raised the spiritual grade of the poor. Now, that's a better long-term thing, right? That is a benevolence that extendeth itself and manifests wisdom. Let thy charity be to the sick and helpless, but be thou wise in directing the able-bodied to help themselves. For all charity tendeth to lower the all charity tendeth to lower the self-respect of the receiver, and casteth him lower in the grades in spiritual life. No, not necessarily. And both people got to watch out for their intentions, but it's really sort of like a favor, because it's the person receiving the charity is, allowing for somebody to do good through them. Favor is probably the wrong word, but because for both it can be a duty, right? But yeah, no, it doesn't debase a person as a soul. People get prideful, and they turn away what they need because, I don't want to accept someone's help. Yeah, that's what degrades people, not the okay, well, I'll let you help me. That humbles a person. Certainly, ones depend on alms, not having either sickness nor yet strong bodies. Nevertheless, were they aroused, they could support themselves. Well, some people, all they need is opportunity, and they can't find opportunity. But when thou givest them regularly, they depend upon thee. These become beggars in the lowest grades in spirit and earth life. That which thou givest them accounteth against thine own grade. Better is it for thee and for them that thou arouse, stir them up from their degradation. Now, the way modern society is, most of the people that are on Social Security or some other form of welfare for the poor, if the employment opportunities were better, the families could work together, and if people weren't reliant on insurances and all that other stuff. So there is some merit to this idea, but it's beyond people's control, because we've set up a system that doesn't give them the opportunity. When thou givest them regularly, they depend upon thee. These become beggars in the lowest grades in spirit and earth life. That which thou givest them accounteth thee against thy own grade. Better is it for thee and for them that thou arouse them from their degradation. Sorry for repeating. To do this tenderly and mercifully, it is a great virtue. To do it cruelly is a great crime. Yeah, don't bring in the insults and reminders of one's charity to others. Consider not so much what thou shalt do to raise thine own grade,
But what thou canst do to raise the grade of those within thy reach, remember all men and women are thy brothers and sisters, and thou shalt labor to make themselves a glory unto the Creator. Remember the magnitude of thy Creator. Remember the magnitude of remember the Creator and the magnitude of his creations. Before thy Creator, thou art but an atom, and as only one small creature. Nevertheless, a multitude of people make a nation, with cities and hamlets. These are also graded by the Creator, according to the ascendancy or declination of the whole. At the city, then, the grades of all people shall be summoned together at a scale of 100. And of the nation, then the grades of the cities and hamlets, and of the people of isolation shall be summed together at a scale of 100. And if half the people are above grade 50 and half below 50, the grade of that people shall be 50. If 1/4 only, then the grades of the cities and hamlets and of the people of isolation shall be summed together in a scale of 100. And if half the people are above grade 50 and half below 50, the grade of that people shall be 50. If 1/4 only, then the grade of that people shall be 25. On the basis of individual grades shall be the grades of a city and of a nation, and of the behavior of a city or a nation shall be graded in the same way, after the manner of an individual. A certain nation built almshouses and asylums sufficient for the needy, and by its tyranny made an equal number of needy ones. Well, the more likely is like the incarceration system that they, is the ending up of, well, we have to fill the houses and stuff like this, and rather than putting people in a position where they're not going to be criminal or insane, or deterrence that will keep from some of that, right? The nation raised not its grade for the good it had done. Another nation built no almshouses, but by its wholesome laws there were none needed. That nation raised its grade manyfold, and yet another nation maintained a standing army in order to maintain itself. That nation stood in grade 1 only. The place of this last nation shall be grade 1, which is the animal region, which is earth. Whoso dwelleth in such a land, though he have a good individual grade, shall suffer deduction in the ratio of the grades of different nations of the earth. But whoso dwelleth in a nation high in grade shall be ascended in his own individual grade. As these grades are on earth, so they correspond in spirit life, in all cases depending on what one doeth for the resurrection of others. If a city or nation or a kingdom in spirit life do unto others in resurrection, then it shall be credited accordingly. But if there be no gain in the good that any of these do, they shall receive no grade. But if they increase in raising individual grade, then are such cities and nations rising in grade. Consider thy nation, O man, one generation with another, and as the relative proportion of individual grades rise or fall, so shalt thou determine whether thy nation is ascending or falling in grade. Number its paupers and criminals as to increase or decrease. Consider not its wealth, nor its ships, nor its armies, nor its great buildings. These altogether are only one grade, and are of no value as to the spiritual grade of its people. Wow. If they're for themselves rather than a means of consciousness, actions and stuff, but for the strength and life of thy nation dependeth on its spiritual grade. Pursue this, and thou shalt prophesy truly as to the growth or downfall of a nation. Pursue this also with regard to the nations of the earth, and thou shalt determine the relative place of thine own nation in the unseen world of spirits. And